Let's start here. So, I am James Preston from the Queen's College here at Oxford. These wonderful slides, I am informed, are being transmitted across Oxford at the moment. I don't imagine anyone's watching because the only reason you've all come to this presentation is for the freebies that you weren't told about. We're going to go through the way that we are using smart... more people, okay. More people. There we go. We're going to go through the ways that we are using smart cards, in particular YubiKeys, at the Queen's College. So, my morning. How does my morning look? Well, I arrive this time at 9:05 because I was taking so long to get my coffee, and I put my laptop just underneath one of my monitors. I plug in that amazing cable which powers all three of my screens, and the very next thing I do is I plug in my YubiKey. Now, this is a YubiKey that's been programmed to work in what we call smart card mode, along with other things. So the next thing that I'm prompted to do is select who I want to sign in as. Now, I can either sign in as James Preston, or I can sign into my computer as the administrator, so a more privileged account. So both of those credentials are held on a single key, and I'm informed these keys, I think, are held up to at least 12 different certificates, 12 different identities on them. I'm then prompted to enter a PIN, and just like your bank card, that PIN can be 4 letters long or 4 digits long, however you want to look at it. We actually program ours so the minimum key length is 6 digits. Once I log in, I then want to start doing some work. In this case, I'm going to remote desktop to another computer inside our environment, and I'm again going to use the smart card to do that. So thus far, I haven't actually entered my password. All I've done is plugged in a physical key and entered the PIN to unlock the data in that key. So that's our two-factor. That's our first part of our two-factor. Something I own, the physical key, and then also the PIN which unlocks the data on that key. So as I log in, I launch remote desktop, I select one of the servers, I press connect. It says, hey, I'm going to log in as the administrator this time with privileged access. And lo and behold, in a couple of seconds, I'm logged into my computer. So the first amazing thing about our smart cards. The next thing, I now want access to our password store in Queen's. In Queen's, only a couple of weeks ago, actually, we started using Keepass. Previously to that, I won't tell you what we were using because reasons. For that, I launch Keepass. I then type in a 6-character prefix. Because programmed on the YubiKey is the ability to print a string of characters, up to 38 letters long in this case, so that's both numbers and uppercase, lowercase, and your stars and all the other funky things that you do. And also programmed on the YubiKey is something that we call challenge response. So once I've entered that string, or once the YubiKey's entered that string, Keepass then sends a cryptographic challenge to the key. You push the button on the key, and it then sends the response back to Keepass. So let's have a look how that looks. So I launch Keepass, I type in 6 letters, which I know and no one else knows, well, besides the other people who use the password database. I push the button and you'll see how fast it types all those amazing letters for me. It then prompts, hey, push the button again, and welcome into my Keepass database. So again, we've used multi-factor authentication, something I have, physically the key. And the key there comes in 2 different aspects. One is the type printer, and the other is the challenge response functionality, and something that I know, which is the prefix that I've typed in at the very beginning there. Now, with the YubiKey, you can program it to do certain different things. One of those things is the moment it types all those letters, is it then sends a enter key to the computer. So if I press and hold the button, it first types out all my letters, it sends the enter key to Keepass, and if I keep holding it, it'll also do the challenge response even faster. Let's watch that happen. So I type in the prefix, I push the button and hold it, sends the long string, and I'm straight in. Just push and hold. Absolutely insanely easy. For that, Keepass, I will come into questions in just a second because there are prizes to give. questions mean prizes. And I'll come on to that in just a second. Keepass, like any other password manager, has loads of features into it that, you know what, I'm not going to go into depth, but if you double click on things, it will copy it to your clipboard for 12 seconds, and it will then paste it up for you. All of the password managers have these kind of things in. So I really wouldn't kind of consider that a speciality, but it's something which just saves time. Double click, for the next 12 seconds, if you press Control and V, it will paste your password for you. Now, the more important thing is locking my computer. Because whenever I walk away from my computer, I want it to lock. Now, the magical thing about smart cards is a service runs on your computer that detects when the smart card is unplugged. Let's see what happens when the smart card gets unplugged. Computer locks. So easy. In my case, my smart cards are actually on my physical keychain, so the ones with the boring old keys which let you through boring old doors. The NFC version of the YubiKeys, so they've got 3 main versions out at the moment. That also works with our Paxson Net2 readers. Apparently, someone's also managed to get them to work with the Salto readers, even though it's a little bit slower than the normal full-size smart card. So, all in all, on a single key, I've got the ability to log in with multiple different credentials at different administrative levels. I've got the smart card for that. I've got the keyboard printer. I've then also got the challenge response. And if you get the really expensive one, which in the grand scheme of things isn't that expensive, I can also get through physical doors that have those things on it. So it works with Paxson Net2 and also your Salto readers too. So YubiKeys themselves, and in just 2 slides we'll come on to questions and prize giving. When you first think of YubiKeys, if you've come across them in the past, you'll probably think of them in this kind of manner. So the U2F feature, you go to a website like Facebook or GitHub, it says plug in your key, push the button, and it will allow you in after you've entered something like a password or a text message response or something like that. So that's the traditional thing that people think about. In reality, they've got so much more built into them, which is what we've just been going through. At the moment, there are 3 main varieties out, with USB-C options as well. At Queen's, we're using the YubiKey 4. It's a little bit cheaper than the YubiKey Neo, and it's got every single feature with the exception of NFC in there. So absolutely fantastic smart card support. It can store a lot of certificates. It can store a lot of data for that. FIDO U2F, which is that logging into GitHub and Facebook and your Google account through Google Chrome and things like that. It's got that keyboard printer built into it, along with the ability to store OpenPGP, strings, your OAuth, so many features, just so many in there. And on Amazon, when I looked these up a couple of days ago, it was £36.50 a key. The YubiKey Neo has pretty much all of the features of the YubiKey 4, minus the support for the really, really good smart card stuff, and that's just the encryption levels that it supports. But it's got the NFC bit built in, so it can work with your Android phone. I think they've just started coming out with a iOS version as well, and it'll let you through your doors if you've got Net2 and Salto. The way it actually appears is a MyFair NXP chip, I think, when I last scanned it against my phone. I can send people the full details of that if they really want. And then finally, the latest and greatest one, the security key by Yubikey. So they haven't actually branded it as a YubiKey. This has got something amazing called FIDO 2 built into it. If anyone's been following Microsoft on authentication for Azure AD and log into computer, Microsoft have now made it such that if you're using Azure AD, which, you know what, it takes time, energy and effort to set that up, and you're probably not going to be using it, but you can log into your computer just by plugging the key in and pushing the physical button on it, if that satisfies your needs. Not true second factor authentication, but certainly turns it into a hardware token that you need to get into your computer. So, before I did this presentation, or before I said I'll do this presentation, I emailed the press room at Yubikey and said, hey, can you send us some YubiKeys, please? They managed to send me 21 of them, worth a little over £860. Apparently they're press person, and if you want to get in touch with them, get in touch with me and I'll pass you on the details for their person in their press office. So they sent me these keys. So the reason why I said hold your questions for now is I have them here, and if you ask me a worthwhile question that's not, can I have a YubiKey? That's relevant to the presentation. 1 second. I'll give you one of your choice. How does that sound? Go on, you have the first question so far. Go on.
Can I have the address of the YubiKey press office?
Yes, which one do you want? Which one do you want? Come on, which one?
Oh, the most expensive one, obviously.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, any other questions so far? Oh, for God's sake. I've only got 45 minutes, go on.
Yes, but what are the recovery options if somebody loses their key?
Have a second key, or so the strings which are used for the keyboard printer, we've got that printed off in a sheet in a secret and secure place. The string which generates the kind of the very root of the challenge response thing, again, we've got that secured in a nice safe place in a printed format. So there's always another option of doing it. For things like your Facebook account, normally they'll let you configure both U2F and text message, or U2F and email, or some other method. Equally so, you can use like the normal authenticator apps on your phone. Which one do you want?
Can you go for 4, please?
The 4. Go on at the back.
So how do you make sure that when you go to the toilet or whatever, you remember to unplug it? Because I think that's the biggest problem with one of these.
So what I would say there is put Net2 readers on all of the toilets. All of them. Genuinely, Linda, who I work with here, it's been ingrained into us now. We just don't go anywhere without them, because equally so, if we want to go and see someone, and we need to do a UAC elevation on their computer, so we need to perform an administrative action while they're still logged in. Jam in the YubiKey. Oh look, pin, done. You know, which one do you want?
Just the cheap one.
Just the cheap one. I wouldn't call it cheap. It's got a lot of features.
Why don't you just have a lanyard attached to you, so when you go into the thing, it unplugs it?
Yeah, same again. Mine are on my keys, so in our office, I'm mindful that not everyone's always going to be in the office. Oh, who's next? Go on.
For storage reasons, for Salto, how much storage is on it?
I think it's a 1K. I'm not entirely sure, but I think it's a 1K card. I think it's a 1K card. Which one?
Not to secure this Neo thing,
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, give that a go on your Salto system. At the back. Right, one sec. I got this written down. So the YubiKey 4 for smart card authentication is RSA 2048, ECC P256 or ECC P384. For the Neo, it only supports the RSA one and the P256 version of ECC. For Keepass, that's AES 256 plus something else which I can't quite remember. But again, high. Which one do you want?
Which one's better in encryption standards?
4, definitely.
Yeah, 4.
Oh, dear. I'm getting good at workout from this. I do have more slides. It's not just about handing out the kids.
Do these work with Apple and
Yes,
Linux?
yes,
machines?
yes. So support, depending on whichever OS you're using, of course. So smart cards, to be honest, that's a Windows thing. I think smart cards, I think Windows. The keyboard printer, anything. It's a keyboard as far as the computer is concerned.
We use 1Password for our.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, Linux support, even there as well for storing PGP keys, things like that. So the tools which you use to manage them as well, it's cross-platform. So they've got it, mono support for .NET on Linux. They've got a specific one for OS X, and they've also got the normal one for Windows as well. I'm a Windows guy, sorry. Which one do you want?
4.
4. Oh, can you pass that along to him, please? 'Cause
I don't expect another guess.
you know, yeah. At the back, yeah.
How much has Keepass been scrutinised and proven to be secure?
So it's an open source piece of software, so it's there for other people to look at, of course. As far as how much it's been scrutinised, yeah, they've got awards, they've got all the things like that. I'm not going to say it's the best one. I'm just going to say it's the one that we use. It was free. It works with what we wanted to use as far as protection goes. It was good. So, you know, there are plenty others. I'm not saying Keepass is the best one. Which one do you want?
4, please.
4. I'm starting to run low on 4s.
Everyone wants them.
Go on then, at the back.
Have you tried this on, dare I say it, an ordinary user, for example, somebody in finance?
I'll come on to that in a second or two in a little bit more detail. Previous to this, we were using Gemalto cards, which are still a USB reader, but not the same functionality, not fully featured. We've been thinking about giving them to our old members office staff, actually,
Yeah.
because as far as, I'm going to mention it, GDPR, they're the kind of the people that we're most concerned by,
Yes.
and it seems to kind of fit in with their role, so we're considering it, trying them. We haven't actually got round to giving them to them. Ultimately though,
Yeah.
smart card stuff, if you look it up, that's the NHS and the United States Department of Defence.
It's creepy.
You cannot find two larger organisations on the planet with more end users. I think it's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah,
Which one?
Okay. 4, please.
4. I have 2 4s left. Go on then.
How physically durable are they? Have you managed to break
So they're 3 grams in weight. They feel really tough. I think I've seen this one being used underwater. Pretty sure I've seen it being used underwater. Yeah, tough. I would say the Gemalto ones that we were using before, not so tough. Your traditional smart card, like your bod card, I would rate these as much tougher than them. I think you're more likely to smash it into a million different pieces by using a laser beam. Very tough laser beam. Tough. Which one do you want?
Neo, please.
Excellent. More Neos.
Here.
Oh, that's nice. Go on then.
The TOTP support, how does that work?
I've not actually used it. However, through the programming tool, you've got features to do that. If you want to have a look at it, we can spin it up on here. It's there. I've not used it. Which one do you want?
Yeah.
Neo? 2 Neos left. Go on then.
How easy was it to implement for some of your Windows users, but not all of them, on the same?
Say again, sorry?
How easy was it to roll out to some Windows users, but not your whole Active Directory?
It really doesn't matter, to be honest. So I can continue, if I really wanted to, use my username and password. It's seamless. There's no difference between, we haven't changed any settings for anyone else. It is just a case of, if I want to use my smart card, I jam it into a USB port, I select which certificate I want to use, and I'm there. Yep.
Okay.
Which one do you want?
Neo, please.
1 Neo left.
Thank you so much.
Go on then.
Okay, can you use it via RDP?
Yep.
Still use the smart card login?
It is smart card login. That is smart card over RDP.
Smart card over RDP will work.
Yes, that's exactly the demo I showed. So that is, I remote desktop to a server. Instead of getting a username password prompt, what it gives me is the last certificate that I used with that server. And it then says, oh, okay, enter your PIN, and you're away. I'll show it in a later slide, if I have time. Should never have done this. I should have hidden them under the seats. I was thinking about hiding them under the seats. Too late for that. But we can use them for websites. If you enable certificate authentication on a website, use it for a website as well. Yep, which one do you want?
4 please.
4. 1 4 and 1 Neo left. Person from Cray.
How many of them have you managed to break when programming them?
Break when programming them.
There's 2 passwords on there.
Okay, break.
On the key itself when you set it up, and if you get it wrong too many times, I know it locks completely.
So there is a factory reset for the keys.
For one of the passwords.
For one of the passwords.
Yeah.
Which one do you mean?
There's
Sorry.
support for that. There's 2 passwords, and when it.
So there are 2 programmable blocks on the key for what they call the legacy operations. So that's the key printer, OpenPGP, OAuth2PP, and HOTP in. As far as I understand, you can just flash both of them back to the way they were. I haven't managed to brick any yet. Yeah? Which one do you want?
Have you got any fours left?
Yeah, last 4. What I suggest is you try and break it. And then send it back to us at Queen's and I'll try and fix it.
You could just ask Craig
Yes! Plug it! No, just give it a go. Send it back to us.
I have some broken ones I can send you.
Yep, send them. Go on then. Oh. No, have I given you one yet?
No, you haven't.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to us is the desire to use these on other things such as say web or phone.
So when I first looked up smart cards about 2 years ago, I was searching away, learning stuff as I do, and then I thought, oh, I'll put Oxford at the end of that, or University of Oxford, and I'll see what happened. Apparently 10 years ago, some bright spark had this amazing idea of issuing certificates to people that they could use for authentication. You would trust the University of Oxford certificate provider, and you could put them on your keys, and then they killed the project because no one wanted to do it. What you could do, I guess, is just as we use the keyboard printer, have a prefix, and then use the keyboard printer to type the rest of the string for your normal password. I would like to combine that with something else, like the challenge response feature.
I suppose you use U2F, maybe.
Yeah, if they support, so Shibboleth itself, I understand, supports U2F, just no one's implemented it. So maybe if we hand out enough of these, and I've got loads of the blue ones left, by the way. Maybe someone will do it. I understand Shibboleth supports it, but we've never tried that. I don't think Oxford supports it. Someone prove me wrong. I have a Neo, and I have the blue ones left.
Most will have Neo, right?
Yeah. Go on then.
So, if you're using Keepass,
Yes.
how do you distribute that? Is that locally? Do you share it on the
Stored on a
cloud?
network share, and then using the synchronization feature to sync the file onto our computers. So that way the file is stored in multiple locations. In addition, in a undisclosed location, we have a copy of the Keepass database stored on a USB memory stick, and along with one of the YubiKey 4s with it, such that if we ever need, we can break into it that way.
And would you feel comfortable sharing it outside of your network, say on a cloud service?
So, it's one of those things where the thing that drew me to Keepass, and I'll come on to this in a later slide, is you don't have to have any cloud reliance. If it's something that you would want to put, it's just a file, it's just a normal binary blob like any other file. I guess you could. My personal one, which I have, is on OneDrive. So that's accessible from my phone and a couple of other places. It is encrypted. The one thing I'm never going to put in any password management store ever is my email address password, because I kind of feel like that's the one that if you get hold of that, you kind of got most of my life. Or at least my digital life. So it comes up to what you think's right. For us, we're not storing on any cloud service provider, and we're not going to anytime soon. That's on our laptops, which of course are BitLocker encrypted, and also on our servers. So yeah, I'm afraid I've only got 4s left. Sorry, not 4s. These ones left.
Thank you very much.
Right, last few questions, and then I must get through the rest of my slides. Rob.
When you plug it in,
Yep.
because you said you've got passwords for a couple of different accounts on there,
Mm-hmm.
you still have to put your username in and then the appropriate...
No, so it populates the username for you. So what you're actually presenting is not a username and password, it's a security certificate. So it's presenting a digital proof of your identity that the server trusts. So for those at the prompt to log in, you get little smart card logos and you select the one that you want to log in as. In my case, that's my personal user account and then the elevated administrator user account. You only get one of these.
What about when you upgrade your software like Keepass 2, etc.?
So Keepass upgrades, we were already using Keepass 2. So we were never using Keepass version 1, so we didn't have to migrate the databases. As far as if you keep within the same branch of Keepass, you just install the updates and you're away. If you want to migrate from version 1 to version 2 of Keepass, I think you have to do an export and then an import. So, you know, it's just the way it is. As far as the protection goes with the security keys, there's no magic about them. You don't have to do anything extra. I have 3 left.
Is there anything that they don't do that you would like?
Nothing I've come across so far. To be honest, I'm probably only using a small percentage of the feature set. I'm not even using the FIDO U2F bits. I'm using my phone for that. So, you know, wasn't there one down here?
Yeah, I was just wondering if you lose it and what happens.
So if you lose it, in the case of the smart cards, you go to your domain controller and you revoke the certificates. Within the time period that the servers then update against your domain controller, that will then prevent you from logging in with those certificates. Now, for the smart card feature, it's also protected by a PIN. It has a PIN lockout, so if you try the PIN wrong 3 times, you either have to factory reset the smart card, which destroys all the data on it anyway, or you have to enter a long, complicated string, which allows you to reset the PIN on it, as it were. For the rest of the features, I would be changing the Keepass username and password, well, the password to the Keepass database very quickly. And I would also be starting to consider, do I replace all the passwords for the 101 services that I've got in there with something new as well? So
you can reset your PIN. Can you reset your PIN?
You can change the PIN, yes. Yeah. And you can even set PIN policies as well, so that the PIN has to be of a certain length, it has to be of a certain complexity. No problem. Last one.
Can I have the last key?
Yes. Right, I have a almighty, what is it, 15 minutes to get through the last slides. So, the YubiKey 4 in particular comes in a couple of other form factors as well. They've got ones in USB-C, and they've also got what they call the Nano edition. That one is one of the ones which just hides in a USB port. The push button functionality is really tiny on it. So, variety of different form factors. I understand the C version will also work with your Android phone if it supports, if your Android phone supports it. So, smart cards themselves. I wouldn't really consider the university a smart card in the context that I'm talking here. It's got a MyFair chip inside it, it's got some memory, it's got an antenna, but it's not really that intelligent as far as I'm concerned. The intelligence is that small gold chip, just like the one in your bank card. This bumps the price up, so your bod card, I hope the university is buying them at £1 or less. Smart cards like these, you can be talking £15 to £20 per individual card. And that's just because of the intelligence that's built into them. You of course then need a reader as well. The readers, again, £15 to £20. There's loads of different models. But that's one way of doing the smart cards as far as the hardware goes. What we were using before we started using the YubiKeys was these Gemalto tokens. So this is a Gem PC Shell Token V2, otherwise known as the ID Bridge K30. Costs about £10 for the shell itself, which is effectively a replacement for the normal reader that you would have on your desk, and then about £15 for the SIM card sized chip that goes inside it. We bought these from a company called Smart Card Focus, and they actually put the chips inside them for you as well, so you don't have to worry about that, which is quite nice. The YubiKeys, as I've discussed already, we've got the YubiKey 4s. I've got one of them which is for work purposes and one of them which is my own personal one. £36.50 is what I saw on Amazon for them. You can buy them in bulk. Equally so, I'd say get in touch with the press contact that I've got and see what they can point you at for buying in bulk if you ever decide to go for them. As I was saying, smart cards require certificates to be set up. The most traditional way for that is what we call a certification authority on one of your domain controllers, or ideally multiple of your domain controllers. They issue the certificates. Your servers, your machines, also then trust the domain controller such that your certificates are actually valid for those machines. The YubiKey guys have a very in-depth guide on how to set all of this up. Follow the guide. There are loads of other websites out there with loads of other ways of doing it. They've also covered what we call auto-enrolment as well. So that way your user is simply prompted to plug in the key, enter the PIN, and the certificate gets put on there for you. Another way of doing it is enrolling on behalf of a user. So you get a very special certificate that allows you to effectively impersonate any user on your domain. Please protect those ones, of course. And you can then use that to put certificates for other users onto smart cards in your possession. Obviously, all of that is protected with NTFS-like permissions as well, so you really don't have to worry about that too much. As far as the features in group policy goes, so one of them is the auto lock feature. You can enable this per machine, not per user account. There's three main actions there. One is lock the workstation, so that's the one that we use. The other is force a log off, so unplug the key, it will log the user off that computer entirely. And then also, if you're using remote desktop services, previously terminal services, disconnect if a remote session is active. You also need to configure a service on your points or your endpoints for that, and that's that service actually detecting when that key is unplugged. It is also possible, and this is a YubiKey specific feature, although I'm sure other manufacturers have got their own version, that to actually provide the certificate to the computer, you have to push the hardware button on the key. We've not got this implemented, but I understand it's a very, very useful feature, and that provides almost a third factor of authentication. So not only do you have to have the key inserted into the machine, not only do you have to know what the PIN is, but you also have to be physically at the key to push the button. For this to work, you have to have this group policy, or you have to have this registry key enabled with a piece of Yubikey software installed on the machines to actually make it happen. So things that we really like about smart cards. Unplug your card, your PC locks. I mean, that's just amazing. Multiple credentials, which can be protected by a single PIN on the YubiKeys. On more advanced smart cards, like the ones from Gemalto, other providers available, you can also configure multiple different pins on that smart card. So for your lower user account, you can have it set to, for example, a 4-digit PIN, not that I'd suggest you use a 4-digit PIN, and for your higher level, higher permissions level account, you can have it set to a 12-digit PIN, for example. And you can also use letters and punctuation in there as well for your PIN, or equally so, you can disable it. You can use your smart cards to log into any website which supports certificate-based authentication. We use that for a couple of our internal websites at Queen's. And in addition, you can use it with a get credential commander inside PowerShell. Anyone that knows me knows if it involves PowerShell, it's probably good by me. Keepass. So Keepass itself, an overview of the software. First, it is indeed free and open source. There are lots of encryption jargony things in there which sound good that I don't pretend to understand, like AES 256 protection. It's got import and export features available. For the export feature, that makes it quite handy to have your sheet printed off in a undisclosed location with all the passwords still in a printed form. It's got that double click to clipboard feature, and of course the ability to auto type into fields as well. So for that one, if you've got, for example, a username password prompt, you double click on the actual account and it copies the username, sends a tab key, and then pastes in the password as well. So again, saving a bit of time in there. Most other password managers will have these kind of features, so it's really not special. It's got its own built-in password generator of custom length, custom detail, as it were. So many plugins. So many. One of them is the Have I Been Owned database, so it will check your email addresses against the known list of compromised services. The other is a passphrase generator, so instead of a string of random letters and numbers, it will give you the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy mongoose. Plugins for things like Chrome as well, to replace Chrome's default password manager, and also something I haven't tried, the ability to unlock the database with a certificate, like the one that's stored on your smart card. The file storage of the Keepass database itself is just a single file, so you can put that on a USB memory stick, you can carry that around with you, however you like to protect it. In our case, like I said, it's synced between our file storage server and our machines. Our machines are BitLocker protected, so there's a kind of an extra layer of protection there. And if it's on a Windows domain, of course, you can protect it with NTFS permissions, such that only certain users, for example, could read it, but other users could write to it. It doesn't have granular permissions built into it out of the box. However, I understand that's a plugin. As far as downloading Keepass goes, so you just head to their website. They've got 2 branches which are currently being supported, the version 1 branch and the version 2. The Key Challenge plugin that we're using to make it work with the YubiKeys challenge response feature only works with version 2. So if you want to use that, grab version 2. For that plugin, it's a simple matter of copying and pasting the files in the relevant location on the computer, and you then come on to actually configuring the YubiKey itself. So you get a YubiKey personalization tool, free download from their website. You don't even need to register the key or anything stupid like that. And And here you can configure things like how to press the enter key, or if you want extra tabs put in there as you use and interact with the YubiKey. You also want to turn off something called log configuration output. That's the bit which will write all the magic strings you put into the key into an unprotected text file on your computer. Turn that off. For static passwords, it's a simple case of going to the bit that says static password, entering what they call scan code, setting the keyboard layout to the United States, and then entering the password of your choice. For the version 4 ones at least, or the YubiKey 4s, you can have up to 38 characters stored in that. Obviously you can get you can get hardware tokens that are again a keyboard that you just program that can do much longer things. This one is just 38 characters. Hit right configuration and you're done. As far as the challenge response feature goes, again, it's through the same tool. You configure the second slot on your computer with this. You give it a string which generates, which is kind of the base of the generation of the response. It's got an auto generator built in there for you as well. And again, you just write the configuration to the YubiKey. Once you've done that, you set up your Keepass database, you plug in all the secrets that you've got, and you're away. Further reading, plenty of further reading, including a shameless plug for my blog at the very bottom of the list, where you can donate to me the mere cost of a coffee from Taylor's at £1.80. And keep these wonderful presentations going. Last chance for questions. I have no more freebies. Go on then.
No, he's got. I suppose then ask the question, multi-factor authentication. Is this multi-factor authentication, is it
something you have?
Challenge and response authentication where...
Yes.
So truly multi-factor or two-factor authentication, which we're currently discussing in GDPR and data sharing agreements, requires a pure challenge and response and password. This, as wonderful as it is a very easy way for people to not have to remember their passwords.
Yeah, so a fantastic way of not remembering your passwords. In the case of smart cards, you can buy third-party software at great expense, like Duo and such like, which will enable you to enter a password, plug in a smart card, enter a PIN, provide a biometric response, take a scan of your eyeball at the same time, handprint, and if necessary, a sample of your DNA.
And then we want you to respond to a code sent completely different way.
So for that, text message and such like. For this, it's a really easy entry point. So the YubiKeys can do a heck of a lot. And it's got that challenge response, that true cryptographic response built into it as well. It's much more than just generating one-time passwords through the Authenticator app on your phone. There is something truly intelligent going on inside that. So yeah, it's a really easy entry point if you want to spend significant quantities of money, and we're talking in the hundreds of thousands for some of these software solutions. At any decent scale, crack on.
I'm happy for the university to do it for single sign-on.
Yes, definitely. Anyone else?
Do you have to support any blind users with this?
No. Linda's not blind, David's not blind, I'm not blind.
It's supposed this is one of the more blind-friendly methods.
Sounds good. Yeah, sounds good.
Most of them have a little screen on there that you have to read off.
Yeah, so you don't have to enter a password or a PIN for that, those kind of things. It's just a case of pushing the button. So, yeah, good thought.
Sorry if you've already said this, but you said that you put the software on the Active Directory to do authentication. Is that right?
So, for the smart card side of things, that's a feature which is built into Windows Server. There's no additional cost to that. It's just a case of follow the guide.
So you download some software and stick it on?
No, it's built into your Windows servers.
Nothing extra needed?
Nothing extra needed. So one thing which certainly helps the process along is what's called a mini driver. So install the mini drivers. It's just an MSI, so deploy that with group policy. And that speeds up the process at which the smart card is recognised for the first time. Most of the time, like any other hardware device, you plug it into the computer, it finds the driver on Windows Update, it downloads it, it installs it, and then you're good to go. By pre-provisioning the mini driver, and it truly is like a 2 or 3 megabyte file on the computers, it speeds up that process massively. Last one before we go.
Apologies if I should know. Is there any way group policy could prevent this from working?
Prevent it from working?
Mm-hmm.
How so?
As in, lock out a particular key that's been reported as stolen, or would it be a change of...
Not that I'm immediately aware. What you would do is revoke the certificate. That does take time, unfortunately, which is the main thing. I guess you could probably push some kind of command to your active computers to say, update now, but yeah. For the smart card kind of things, it's still better than a password that's written down on a sheet of paper, I think. But yeah, there's probably software solutions, again, like Geo and such like out there that can revoke these things much faster.